Let me start with a hard truth most investors don't want to hear. Most people who invest in the S&P 500 don't fail because they choose the wrong ETF. They fail because they panic, they tinker, and they quit at exactly the wrong time. Today, I'm going to show you how to invest in the S&P 500 using ETFs the right way so that time, behavior, and compounding all work for you instead of against you. And near the end of this video, I'll show you exactly how a boring index fund turned $10,000 into almost twice as much money as professional hedge funds with real numbers. Hello fellow compounders, I'm Chen, CFA charter holder, former hedge fund manager, and chief compounder here at the Always Be Compounding Club. Before we start, a quick disclaimer. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not financial, investment, or tax advice. All tickers and examples are hypothetical and for illustration only. I'm sharing general information and examples, not recommendations tailored to you. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Your situation is unique. Always do your own research and consult a qualified financial professional before making any decisions. Now let's get started. Segment 1. Why the S&P 500 still matters. Why this hasn't changed. The S&P 500 isn't a stock, it's an index. A rule-based collection of roughly 500 of the largest, most profitable US companies, spanning every major sector of the economy. When you invest in it, you're buying ownership in companies like Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Broadcom, Meta Platforms, Tesla, Berkshire Hathaway, and Eli Lilly. This isn't speculation. This is owning American capitalism itself. And while the markets feel chaotic year to year, over long periods, the S&P 500 has historically rewarded people who stayed invested, not people who guessed right. But owning the market wasn't always this easy. To understand why ETFs matter, we need a quick history lesson. Segment 2. Why ETFs changed everything. This wasn't always this easy. Before we go any further, let's answer a basic question. What exactly is an ETF? Because once this clicks, everything else makes sense. What is an ETF in plain English? An ETF, or exchange traded fund, is a basket of investments that trades on a stock exchange just like a stock. When you buy an ETF, you're not just buying one company, you're buying hundreds of companies at once in a single trade at a very low cost. An S&P 500 ETF simply owns the same stocks as the S&P 500 index in the same proportion and passes ownerships on to you. Think of it this way. The ETF is a container and the S&P 500, the 500 stocks, is the contents. The Vanguard breakthrough came first. Long before ETFs existed, there was another revolution. In 1976, Vanguard launched the first index mutual fund available to individual investors. At that time, Wall Street laughed. Critics said, "You can't buy the market. Average returns aren't good enough. This will never catch on." But Vanguard's founder, John Bogle, or Jack as we know him, believed something radical. If you capture the market's return and minimize cost, you'll beat most investors over time. History has proved him right. That Vanguard S&P 500 mutual fund became one of the largest and most successful investment funds ever created. By the way, a version of this original S&P mutual fund is offered as an ETF. We'll talk about it a little bit later. Mutual funds versus ETF. What's the difference? This is where many investors get confused. In an S&P 500 mutual fund, you can buy or sell it once a day after the market closes. Everyone gets the same price. It often requires a minimum investment. It's very tax efficient, but not perfect. In contrast, in an S&P 500 ETF or exchange traded fund, you can trade it all day long, like a stock. You can buy one share at a time. There's no meaningful minimum investment, and it is often more tax efficient. Usually, it has lower expense ratios. Economically, both the mutual fund and the ETF give you ownership of the same 500 companies, the same long-term return before cost, but the difference is how you access it, not what you own. Why are ETFs the better choice in my opinion? ETFs took everything that worked about index mutual funds and made them better. They made them more flexible, more accessible, more tax efficient, and easier to automate. That's why in 1993, the first US S&P 500 ETF launched, known commonly as SPYDers with the ticker symbol SPY. SPY proved that you could package the S&P 500 into one tradable product, costs could even go lower, and that investors didn't need stock picking to succeed. And today, you can do even better than SPY. Let me show you the only S&P 500 ETFs that actually matter. Segment 3, the only S&P 500 ETFs you need to know. Ignore the noise. You don't need 20 ETFs. You don't need clever strategies. You need one good core ETF. Remember, this is for educational purposes only. I'm going to give you a list of 4 ETFs that have the S&P 500 in them, but you should do your own research. So let's continue. Number 1, Vanguard S&P 500 ETF, ticker VOO. This is the gold standard. This is the ETF version of that first S&P 500 mutual fund that was created by John Bogle in 1976. VOO tracks the S&P 500 directly. It has an expense ratio of 0.03% or 3 basis points. It's extremely tax efficient. And as of the end of 2025, it had around $1.5 trillion, yeah, that's trillion with a T, in assets under management. For most investors, this is all they'll ever need. Number 2, iShares Core S&P 500 ETF, ticker symbol IVV. This ETF was created by BlackRock. It is functionally identical to VOO. Same S&P 500 index, similar cost, 0.03% expense ratio. As of the end of 2025, it had around $800 billion in assets under management. Number 3, SPYM Portfolio S&P 500 ETF, ticker symbol SPYM. In previous videos, I used to call this ETF SPLG. That was its name. But now, it's SPYM. SPYM is the former SPLG, which was renamed in October of 2025. SPYM is SPY's little brother. It gives you pure market cap weighted S&P 500 exposure with an expense ratio of 0.02%, which is lower than SPY, VOO, and IVV. It is sponsored by State Street, the same firm that created SPY, the spider. This is State Street's modern, ultra low-cost S&P 500 ETF. As of the end of 2025, it had around $100 billion in assets under management. Number 4, Bank of New York Mellon US Large Cap Core Equity ETF, ticker symbol BKLC. This is a zero-fee option. It has a 0% expense ratio. Yes, 0. It's pretty much managed for free. It tracks a large cap US index designed to closely resemble the S&P 500. As of the end of 2025, it had around $5 billion in assets under management. It's not the official index, but economically, it behaves very, very similarly. Even with the perfect ETF, most people still lose money. And here's why. Segment 4, the real enemy, behavior. This is where returns die. The S&P 500 doesn't lose people money. Behavior does. Buying after big rallies, selling during drawdowns, stopping contributions when headlines get scary. That's how compounding gets interrupted. So, how do you invest without sabotaging yourself? Let's make this practical. Segment 5, how to actually invest, a step-by-step guide. Remember to do your own research and check with a financial advisor if needed. This is just a reference guide for educational purposes. Step 1, choose the right account. 401ks with a match should be your first option, then IRA accounts, and then taxable accounts. Step 2, pick one of the S&P 500 ETFs, VOO, IVV, SPYM, or BKLC. You only need one. Step 3, automate contributions. Monthly or bi-weekly contributions do great. This establishes dollar cost averaging, so you can avoid market timing. Step 4, reinvest dividends early. And finally, don't tinker. Let compounding do its work. This boring system just beats some of the smartest investors in the world. Here's how. Segment 6, Warren Buffett put this to the test. This wasn't theory, it was reality. In 2007, Warren Buffett made a public bet with a hedge fund manager from Protege Partners. The bet was simple. Over 10 years, from 2008 to 2017, a low-cost S&P 500 index fund would outperform a portfolio of 5 funds of hedge funds after all fees. No leverage and no excuses. The money went to charity. Can you guess who won? Always Be Compounding Club. Quick pause here. One thing I've learned after decades of investing is that knowledge isn't the hard part. Behavior is. That's why I created the Always Be Compounding Club. It's a calm community for long-term investors focused on discipline, simple frameworks, and staying invested through real markets. If that sounds like your style, you can learn more by checking out the link in the description. Segment 7, the actual results. This is where opinions end and math begins. Now let's get very precise, because this is the part where investing stops being philosophy and becomes math. In his 2017 shareholder letter, Warren Buffett published the final scorecard of his 10-year wager. This wasn't a blog post, this wasn't a media recap, this was Warren Buffett himself putting the results in writing. Here's what actually happened from 2008 to 2017. On one side of the bet was a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. And on the other side were 5 separate funds of hedge funds carefully selected by protege partners, firms whose entire business was manager selection. And the results? The S&P 500 index fund finished the decade up 125.8% total, which works out to about 8.5% per year. Now, compared to the hedge funds, the 5 hedge fund vehicles finished with total returns of roughly 2.8%, 21.7%, 27%, 42.3%, and 87.7%. When you average them together, the typical hedge fund outcome was about 36% total, or roughly 3.1% per year. Those percentages sound abstract, so let's turn them into something you can actually feel in real dollars. Segment 8, the $10,000 reality check. This is the part that makes people uncomfortable. Let's take everything we just said and make it painfully real. Imagine this. On January 1st, 2008, you invested, hypothetically, $10,000. No trading, no leverage, no clever strategies. You simply picked one side of the bet and walk away. If you chose the S&P 500 index fund, that $10,000 grew to about $22,600 by the end of 2017. More than doubled, quietly, boringly. If you chose, on the other hand, the average hedge fund option, that same $10,000 grew to about $13,600. Still positive, still respectable, but here's the gut punch. That's a difference of roughly $9,000 on just a $10,000 investment over 10 years. Now zoom out, imagine that gap on a $100,000 or $500,000 or an entire retirement portfolio. So what actually caused this gap? It wasn't intelligence, it wasn't access, it wasn't effort. Let's talk about the real reason. Segment 9, the real lesson. This was never about beating hedge funds. Here's the most important part, and where many people misunderstand Buffett. Buffett was not saying hedge fund managers are dumb. They're smart, they're well-resourced, and they work incredibly hard. The problem wasn't skill. The problem was structure. This bet exposed 3 quiet killers of long-term returns. Number 1, fees compound against you. Hedge funds charge layers of fees: management fees, performance fees, funds of funds fees. Each one looks small, but together they create a permanent headwind. Number 2, complexity creates friction. More decisions mean more opportunities for mistake. More moving parts means more ways to go wrong. Number 3, behavior matters more than brilliance. The index fund didn't panic. It didn't rotate. It didn't second guess itself. It just stayed invested. That's the lesson. Not that indexing is magical, but that simplicity plus discipline beats complexity plus ego. So, how do you actually structure a portfolio that respects this lesson instead of fighting it? Segment 10, portfolio structures that work. This is where most investors overthink and underperform. If you accept the lesson of the Buffett bet, low cost, low friction, high discipline, your portfolio structure should reflect that. Here are 3 hypothetical example portfolios that actually work. Option 1, the one fund portfolio. This is the purest form of the lesson. One S&P 500 ETF. That's it. Nothing else. No rebalancing gymnastics, no style drift. Just ownership in the S&P 500 and patience. This works incredibly well for young investors, busy professionals, and anyone who values simplicity over sophistication. Option 2, the core portfolio. This adds stability without breaking the philosophy. You keep the S&P 500 as the core, then you add international stocks for global exposure, and you add some bonds or cash for volatility control. The key rule is that the core still does the heavy lifting. Option 3, the core satellite approach. That's my preferred structure, and you've heard it in several of my videos. This is where experience comes in. You keep a dominant S&P 500 core and add a satellite, not to chase returns, but to support behavior. That's where something like, for example, the US Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF fits in, or ticker symbol SCHD. It adds income, it has a quality bias, and it adds emotional stability during drawdowns. And here's a rule that matters. The core compounds and the satellites exist to help you stay invested. And once you understand that, investing stops feeling stressful and starts feeling inevitable. Final thoughts. What actually matters in the end? If you remember nothing else from this video, remember this. Investing success is not about being smarter than the market. It's about structuring your decisions so you don't fight yourself. The S&P 500 doesn't work because it's perfect. It works because it's good enough, low cost, and hard to mess up. The real magic isn't the index. It isn't the S&P 500 ETF that you choose. The real magic is that you don't have to forecast the economy. You don't have to predict interest rates. You don't have to guess which stock or manager will win next year. You just have to own great businesses and give them time. The Buffett bet didn't prove that hedge funds are bad. It proved something far more useful. Complexity raises the bar for success. Simplicity lowers it. And most investors don't need a higher bar. They need a wider margin for error. That's what investing in a low-cost S&P 500 ETF gives you. It gives you fewer decisions, fewer mistakes, and more time to let compounding do the heavy lifting. So, if investing has ever felt overwhelming, if you ever wondered whether you're missing something, or if you've been tempted to abandon a boring plan for an exciting idea, come back to this. Own the market, keep costs low, and stay invested. Because in the end, wealth isn't built by making the perfect move. It's built by making a reasonable move and repeating it long enough for compounding to take over. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. And if you want deeper portfolio frameworks, live Q&A sessions, and real-world investing discussions, join us inside the Always Be Compounding Club. And remember, the key to building wealth is to always be compounding. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Take care.